Hi guys, so Dominic Cummings spoke to the BBC's Laura Kuenssberg about Brexit, the pandemic and Boris Johnson. Now, my fundamental problem with Dominic Cummings is that I don't believe him. I think he's a charlatan and deceitful. In this clip, he talked about how him and his team wanted to get rid of Boris Johnson, to get him out of number 10. Now, Cummings will give his reasons for getting Boris Johnson into Downing Street back in 2019, and then he'll give his reasons for wanting him out. As I've said before, you have to take what Dominic Cummings has to say with a pinch of salt. He's someone who worked with the worst kind of people back in 2016 to convince the public with lies and half-truths, using tools like social media to manipulate the masses to vote for something that most people did not understand. This guy is one of the architects of one of Britain's biggest constitutional mistakes. While he's admitted that it may have not been the best choice, he has refused to apologise for the damage Brexit has done. Anyway, let's hear what he had to say about his plan to get Boris Johnson into number 10 and then out of number 10.
Literally immediately after the election, it was already clear that this was a problem. Before even mid-January, we were having meetings in number 10 saying, it's clear that Carrie wants rid of all of us. At that point, we were already saying that by the summer, either we'll all have gone from here or we'll be in the process of trying to get rid of him and get someone else in as Prime Minister.
But you've just said that within months of the Prime Minister winning the biggest Conservative majority in decades, you and a few others from the Vote Leave campaign were discussing the possibility of getting rid of him.
Days, not months.
Not months, days. As soon as Boris Johnson was into number 10, Dominic Cummings and his people wanted Boris Johnson out. They used Boris Johnson as a means to an end. Boris Johnson was a tool for them. They wanted power. I believe Dominic Cummings has viewed politics as there are people at the top who have lots of money and lots of power. They're not necessarily elected people, but those are the ones who control everything. Those are the ones who make sure that certain parties are funded, make sure that parties that are funded by them introduce legislation that protects them. Those are the people at the top. And I think he sees himself as a conduit for those people. So they give him the money and then he creates the campaigns. He's the one who is the go-between between the politicians and the donors. He's the one who decides policy. He makes sure that those who are funding the party or those who want the party to go in a certain direction are going in that direction. And if certain politicians resist, then he makes sure that they're out the door.
Within days of the election, you were discussing getting rid of him?
Yes. Well, for all the reasons we've been discussing. He doesn't have a plan, he doesn't know how to be Prime Minister, and we'd only got him in there because we had to solve a certain problem, not because we thought that he was the right person to be running the country.
Well, what?
The problem he's talking about, of course, is Brexit. He wanted to get Brexit done. He wanted to get the UK out of the European Union, get some sort of trade deal, and then out, to close the door on this issue of Brexit. So he could move on to moulding the civil service in the way that he wanted, moulding the country in the way that he wanted.
What kind of con had you just pulled off on the British public then, if that's really what you think?
Well, it's not. I don't think it's a con. It's
not a con. You convinced the people to vote for someone that you thought was incompetent. You have to understand that Dominic Cummings doesn't care about democracy. He doesn't care about Boris Johnson. He doesn't care about what Boris Johnson represents. He understood that Boris Johnson was a way for him to strengthen his position, for him to be the puppet master. He doesn't care. But Dominic Cummings doesn't give a crap about the general public. He doesn't give a crap about ordinary people. He doesn't give a crap about the NHS and in a sense, I don't think he gives a crap about Brexit. He saw Brexit as a tool that he could use to put himself in the position of puppet master. Someone is paying the puppet master, of course, but he would be the one deciding what politicians, who's going to be prime minister, basically. He's going to decide who's going to be in charge of what department. From a civil service point of view, maybe the minister, no, but the minister is just a figurehead. The real job is done by the civil servants. And if you can control them, if you decide who is going to be in charge in each department, then you wield a huge amount of power. And that's what Dominic Cummings wanted to do. But there was some conflict.
We try to solve very hard problems in the order that we can solve them in.
There's nothing wrong with running an election campaign, presenting one thing to the public, saying he's the guy for the job, and then days after the result comes through, you then, unelected officials inside government, discussing getting rid of him. That's okay?
Well, I'd say that's politics.
That's politics. As I've said before, Dominic Cummings doesn't give a crap about Britain. He doesn't give a crap about ordinary people. It's all about him and his supporters or his acolytes within his organization. I wouldn't even call it an organization. It's just a group. He understood. I'm not saying he's a very intelligent individual, but he understood that there are certain tools you can use to elevate your position. And he realized that Brexit was a tool he could use. He understood that Boris Johnson was a tool he could use. And he knew that there were mechanisms in order to convince the public to vote for things like Brexit and to vote for things like Boris Johnson. And as soon as Brexit had served its purpose, then he jettisoned it. As soon as Boris Johnson had served his purpose, he had plans to have him out the door and replaced with somebody he could manipulate as well. Boris Johnson had served his purpose. He got Brexit done in a sense. And Dominic Cummings, once again, was hoping to use someone else, mold someone else into his image, the image that he wanted. Dominic Cummings wants to control Britain, in a sense. Now, fortunately or unfortunately, depending on your point of view, he ran into some opposition from the likes of Boris Johnson's fiancée at the time, Carrie. And perhaps Carrie had a similar view. She wanted to be in a position where she is controlling the Prime Minister. Now, of course, she'd be controlling Boris Johnson. She wouldn't be controlling whoever came after. And I think perhaps Dominic Cummings bit off more than he could chew at the time. And he didn't realize that Carrie was a force to be reckoned with. And then he found himself out the door. You have to also remember that Dominic Cummings had nothing really else, nothing else to offer the Tories. As I've said on numerous occasions, the Tories will protect themselves. And maybe Dominic Cummings didn't realize that. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think about all of this. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot. I want to say a big thank you to all of my patrons. You ensure that this channel continues to exist. I'm eternally grateful for all of your support. If you join Patreon, you will receive instant access to our Discord server, where we have both audio and video chats. You can chat with me and other patrons, where we discuss important and non-important issues. Becoming a patron per month costs about the same as a large coffee, so why not check it out?